for people completely different thoughts and minds in one house. So it, I think, gave me the opportunity to look at the world a little differently. I grew up in Portsmouth, and immediately, as the second I could get out of Portsmouth, it's a very, it's close to Virginia Beach, so very coastal, very slow, and I wanted a little energy. So I don't know how energy equated to Fredericksburg, Virginia, but it did. And I left for college about a week after I graduated high school, into the summer program, and absolutely loved it. I loved exploring different cultures through the different students that were there, and all those experiences. Eventually, I transferred to Johnson and Wales, which is more on the culinary side, and studied event planning and event management there. And started my first company, which was an event planning service. And I did a lot of weddings, had the opportunity to actually work for the museum there, which is like a partner of the Chrysler. So it's beautiful museum. I served on their board and used to throw their big events and their big fundraisers. And that is actually how I got introduced into alcohol, because, of course, what's one thing you need to get people to donate money is alcohol. So that's when Tito's was first launching, and I got to really experience what it's like to not just throw this event, but get people to experience brands, and then turn that kind of into a career in working in sponsorships and brand development. Worked with really great brands like IKEA, and we put a bed in the middle of a gala so people could see and have fun and take photos. It was hilarious. Building out all those brand activations, and eventually took that to corporate, and then decided to build KT Winery shortly after.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Wow. You did several years in one question. That was excellent. That was excellent because yeah, one of my questions was is also too so you actually went to school for event planning and then you started your own business right after that. You were working in the museum, working on events and sponsorships. But just backtracking a little bit from
Yeah, sorry,
there.
I do get carried away.
No, not at all. Not at all. I appreciate it. What did you find in your childhood or upbringing inspired your interest in the wine industry or hospitality industry in general?
Yeah, so my mom, like I said, was in the Navy, and but we would stay and she would go. So she would come back with wines from all these different countries, and that's kind of how I discovered the world, is through her eyes and through her stories of breaking bread with people in Alaska or the Republic of Georgia or Turkey, or any of the stans. Like, it was food and wine really bridging people together, and that's really where I got that base from. I've always loved to entertain. And I think this is more so a natural extension, but I think it definitely came from my mom giving me a sense of wonder. And that's how this, created itself. And we've always had a special bottle of wine to celebrate something, whether it was my first time getting my own apartment or my first time whatnot. My mom and I would, she'd come over, we'd have a glass of wine and kind of debrief, talk through the things. And that really set my foundation for how I engage with my best friends and how I created communities in all the different places I've lived. So yeah, I think it's the sense of wonder, in the sense that we're all not that different.
Oh, thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you so much. And that sounds, wow, that sounds really interesting to learn about culture through wine, because your mom is going to all these different countries. And I think it does, I guess that there is a way of learning about that culture through the wine because I've learned too, there's a lot of countries that I wouldn't even think have wine industries, like Croatia, where I was like,
Mhm.
Croatia, but I, realizing Croatia, it's actually Mediterranean. So it is
Right.
warmer weathers, temperate. And so it does teach you about cultures a bit in that as well. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So now that you're the founder and CEO of KT Winery, can you tell us, you told us a little bit about at the beginning of your career journey. So you were at Johnson and Wales, you're working at the museum, you started event planning. And then beyond from that, what professional experiences or roles led you to starting KT Winery? Because you had already started some businesses before then.
Yeah. So when I decided that I needed to have a stable income to actually qualify for a house one day, when I went to Dish Network, I was working at the internal creative agency there. So Dish Network, Sling TV, they all have their own kind of army of creatives, around 50 people working on absolutely every part of the business, from the things you see on the walls at Dish to the Super Bowl commercials. So my job was really to take what corporate executives wanted and work with the designers and to make it happen and to kind of translate and make the vision come together. And quickly realized that telecom was not for me. It's a very old industry, which also means it's a little sexist, a lot racist. And I was like, I got to get out of here, but let me take these tools with me. So I ended up working at a few different creative agencies over the next like 4 or 5 years, even while I had started KT Winery, because, income is still important.
Yeah.
So we got to make sure, and we can get down that rabbit hole, but I'm very passionate that I love that people want to quit their job to be an entrepreneur, but you still have to feed yourself and you still have to have a place to live, right?
Yeah,
So I
that's
was just
right.
working insane hours, but I worked for different creative agencies, both on like the B2B SaaS tech side to the St. Regis and all of the luxury hotel side as well, doing similar things. But be eventually, before I officially moved into KT Winery full time, my second attempt, because my first attempt, we did not have enough money in the bank to do it. So I had to get back and get a job. Before I moved into KT Winery full time, I was the director of operations for a creative agency in Chicago, working remote. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and thank you for saying that that you tried to, you're working while you were building KT Winery and also
Hmm.
at one point tried to kind of strike out and do it full time and was like, oops, actually
Hmm.
not getting enough money to make this happen. So you kind of went back and worked and then launched again. Okay. So I would say with this series, we focus on authenticity and taking leaps of faith. And it sounds like even as approaching and doing the work to build KT Winery, you were taking a lot of leaps of faith. But
Yes.
specifically, how do you feel being authentic and taking leaps of faith factor into you creating KT Winery, and how does that continue to inform your work now?
I think there is a double-edged sword sometime with authenticity.
Mhm.
Sometimes it means that you're showing your cards and being a little transparent to people who may not be the best, have the best intentions or have the best ideas of how to use that transparency. And
Mhm.
in other ways, I think it creates such a beautiful experience for the people working with you and the vendors who actually have that sense of partnership and the ones who want to build with you. Ultimately, my co-founder and I have this conversation about twice a year. It comes up of, I feel like if we were just more, more fake, or we weren't being so honest or whatnot, that this would be easier. It seems like it's easier for other people. But the reality is I love doing what I do because there's not a single person I work with, from an investor to a distributor to a co-founder to an employee, that I can't walk in the room with and be 100% myself, because I've always been that way. There's not such thing as Kristen's having a bad day, she's such a different person today, or Kristen isn't, whatnot. It's everyone gets to experience me how I really am. So there's no need to keep a front. Of course, I will say there have been partnerships that we thought were going to be great and they weren't. And they saw the authenticity and tried to take advantage of it. And it ultimately, though, has moved our business forward, even if it felt like a setback at the time, because now we're building with people who are just so excited and passionate about us thriving. So, double-edged sword, but I think it's 100% worth it, and I have no regrets in leading with who I really am.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate you saying that it can be a double-edged sword. I think it's about, yeah, how do you leverage that where it can be very it can be a strength for you and it can really get you to the core of what is going to make you successful. But then it's about who's around you, right? That's a really good
It
thing to say. It's like, who are you sharing that with? And as I always say, I say this, are they picking up what you're putting down?
is,
Right.
right?
And not everybody will. And it takes sometimes a certain level of wisdom and discernment to know who are the people who are going to really work with us and be in a good partnership and understand what we're doing so that we can be like build and be successful together and make a
Yeah.
good partnership. So thank you for that. Thank you for saying that it can be a double-edged sword. And you did mention there were times where you felt like that authenticity was somewhat became a detriment or did not result in good partnerships. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What did you learn from that
Yeah.
experience?
Um, Without getting too deep into it, I'll tell you the one that always comes to my mind when anyone asks anything in this vein. Um, Obviously having a wine company is expensive and funding can be a challenge often. There have been times where we're like, oh, okay, wow, we got hit with a $15,000 bill we weren't expecting, which is jarring.
Wow.
And also still have to make this wine. And I'll never forget one of our earliest wine partners we thought was going to be really excited because, they touted about, oh, we love startups. We love women of color. We definitely want to help you succeed. And when I called them to say, hey, I can't pay this bill, knowing, by the way, that their other clients owed them hundreds of thousands of dollars and we owed them 14 just
Right.
to listen,
Hmm.
and they decided to hold our wine hostage. But it was right before Mother's Day. It's called Mom Juice, it's just like the most stressful thing ever. And I will never forget like having a call and being transparent of like, hey, this is what's going on. If I can get the wine that I own from you, then I can go sell it to this distributor and give you a check. But you have to give me the collateral I have to give that to them, like that's how we create transactions. And I'll never forget, they held it as leverage to teach us a lesson.
Oh,
And it was one of the most humbling experiences of my life to realize that obviously, this as life, especially being a Black girl, like this is not my first rodeo, right? But it's something to feel that you forged partnership and someone's kind of using it to slap you in the face and make an example out of you, even though you know that so and so has a $200,000 situation. They're not holding their stuff hostage, but they're choosing to pick on you.
right.
Um, that was really devastating, right? But then I realized that I actually had a lot more power here than I thought and figured out how to leverage it for us of like, you know what? I will call my investor. I will get the loan. I will get this out. I'm going to move all of my hundreds of thousands of dollars of business from you immediately. We did it within a week. Everything was out. Moved to a different facility who's been wonderful to us.
Mhm.
And, I think it's not my job to be vindictive. God's got that. I'm good.
Right. Right.
So I've just, decided to focus. But oh, it was devastating at the time. I just remember sitting there kind of like this is in this like incredulous state of like, what is
Hmm.
happening? How can someone be so two-faced,
Yeah.
Which, makes you feel naive. But I think as adults, when we start these journeys, we gain back that sense of childlike wonder a little bit. And so it was kind of like a lesson for me of like, let's do some deeper due diligence into who people are.
Yeah.
Because you're going to keep showing up as yourself. Let's make sure that that's going to be honored. So it
Mhm.
did create more processes for us to make sure that, we still got to be the heartfelt leaders we wanted to be. But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I think that is a great example of you sticking to your core values, your integrity, like who you are as a person and what your brand represents, right? And everybody on your team, they're going to move with a certain level of integrity. And that can be challenging because if you're working with someone who isn't, right? They're not moving with integrity. So but it says a lot for you to stay within who you are and stay true to yourself because like you said God will work out everything else, right? And I think it is a learning lesson of you you learn from that, right? And you learned like, okay, next time, who to work with, also
Mhm.
to how to leverage my own power. That was excellent. That was like, I was like, go ahead, Kristin, because she was like, okay, we have an investor. Let me get my product and we
Yeah.
can sell, and we will not work with you anymore. That's what we just going to do. We're not going to like, we can just make it easy for you.
I
You don't
mean,
even need to teach us a lesson
I
ever
think
again.
we have to learn, right, that just as much as we feel like people wronged us, we have the privilege, we have the decision to give them the privilege to work with you or know you. And at any time, you can revoke that access.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Yeah. They don't need to have access to you.
no. Mhm.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That was excellent. Excellent example of that. Um, And so you talked about some maybe challenging things along the way. And also I may skip around. I'm going to go to a question that I think relates to some of the things you were saying before. And so before you were saying that you were in the telecom business, and that was a very like male, white male, sounds like you said uh, sexist type of environment as well. And doing a little bit of research about the wine and spirits industry, I was really baffled to see that it is. I think it was like only 1% of African Americans like are own their own wineries or like have their own like own their own wine businesses.
Mhm.
And I was just like, wow, I didn't even think about that. Um, and so, do you foresee women and people of color having more ownership, receiving more recognition in the wine and spirits industry?
You know, I do, and I'm excited to see the growth.
Mhm.
I think there's so many different pathways in wine, right? From owning the winery like we do, to having a label, to maybe being a negotiant and, bringing in wine from different countries. Like Inez Best does that from I Best Wines and, is killing it. Um, there's so many pathways through. That 1% number is always interesting to me, right? Because maybe like 8 to 9% of wine brands are Black owned now. And but the difference is the ownership, right? Because the, the curation is there, but the quality maintenance and the licensing and the ability to get distributed. And so it does create different guardrails to have a brand versus own the winery to create the product. Um, I'm really passionate about us entering in the industry, kind of testing it out, but then taking that next step to actually owning it, because I think that's what creates a scalable business, right? Because let's say, for instance, give you an example, if the McBride sisters had just been a brand for Black Girl Magic, they absolutely could not have done what they did with it. There, it would have been extremely cost prohibitive. They definitely could have never had sponsored Essence Fest and done this big campaign because it would have cost them $14 a bottle to do that, and they would have made a dollar or two off of it, right? Versus actually having that ownership and having the margin and ultimately the revenue to continue to build this brand. And now, of course, they have a vineyard, which is wild and amazing. I think ownership is so important, and owning it to a area where it's scalable is more important, and making sure that we are doing that. But there are so many great organizations now. My favorite is the African American Association of Vintners, which, from us to McBride Sister to Danae from Lafette du Rosé to Krishan from Love Corkscrew, we're all in the same organization, down to people who haven't even launched their brand yet. So it provides this whole access point, and I feel like we're finally making our own network.
Yeah.
Right. I think wine is very much inherited and has the potential and the reality of being a good old boys network. I'm really excited that we've created something for Black people, people of color. I don't think AAAB actually denies anyone if they're melanated in any way. Um, but we're creating our own network of collaborators and mentors and advisors and teachers. And um, that's how you move the industry forward. And wine is one of the oldest industries in the world. They were making wine in Samaria uh,
Yeah.
thousands of years before Jesus, BC. And it just shows you how much it hasn't changed until the last 25 years. So I'm excited to see that progress. I think it's going to be beautiful. And we're seeing it now, I think, in a lot of different spirits categories. So excited to see what happens.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. And Yeah, because there's a lot of expense because now that I think about it, like you said, it's inherited because a lot of wineries now you find that, it used to be farmland and it's like, oh, my family owned this farm and they've been owning this farm since the 1890s or,
Mhm.
1920s and they kind of pass it along and at some point they decide to make vineyards instead of,
Mhm.
what it was before, maybe corn or, what have you. So that takes, someone giving you that land, right?
Right.
So, and having the capital to do that. So, I appreciate that. Another in instance I was going to talk about was the Jack Daniel's whiskey. So I recently learned about Fawn Weaver, and to let everyone know that what Fawn Weaver wrote a book about. His name was Uncle Nearest. So his actual name was Nathan Nearest Green, and he was actually a former slave who was the master distiller for Jack Daniel's whiskey. And he actually is the person that taught all of Jack Daniel's family how to distill whiskey. And there's still people in his family now that work at the Jack Daniel's whiskey. But now Fawn Weaver told the story about Uncle Nearest, and now there is a whiskey brand related to that.
Mhm.
And I think, does she own a distillery as well, or just the brand?
Yes, nearest
Yeah.
green distillery. Hmm.
So yeah, so that was something I was like researching, I found as well. And I thought that was fascinating. And it made me really think if we really knew who was behind, like the labor that goes behind a lot of this work, I wonder if there's more stories like Uncle
Oh,
Near out
definitely.
there. Hmm.
Think about it, right? Let's just be honest here. Those white people were not out farming those grapes.
Yeah, right.
Let's be real. That's just the reality of, our country. Um, I think, and that's why I think Nearest Green's story was so beautiful. And also, Fawn being an author beforehand really has helped tell that story so in such a different light than I think other brands have because she has that lens. She's also become an actual maverick in the spirits industry. I think what she's done is phenomenal. She's personally been very helpful for me in my journey. So I'm a huge Fawn fan and a huge Uncle Nearest fan. I have some on my bar cart right now behind me. But yeah, and that goes back to ownership,
Right. Yeah.
right? She's not just having the brand, she owns the distillery. It's gorgeous and massive. I think she continues to be the most awarded whiskey ever. Uh,
Wow.
So there's a lot there, right? And there's a lot of ways to make impact now.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah, that was such a fascinating story. And so hopefully I think that will open the door for more people, women and people of color to be in the wine and spirits industry, or for people to get recognition for the work that they've done that's gone hidden for many years. Because it is a lot of labor. So someone did that labor, right?
Right.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so let me see. Um, Okay, I'm gonna ask one more question and then I'll open it up to the group so I won't monopolize your time. Okay, so um, you talked about it a bit about the experience with the one distributor, but what are some life lessons that you learned and are still learning from, creating KT Winery?
I have always been a very ambitious person. Even when I was in grade school trying to sell cookies to my family members, and I couldn't bake back then, y'all. It was nasty, but I kept trying to sell them. To starting my business in college to now. And one of the biggest lessons for me has been that balance has to come in at some point. And whether that balance be yourself and my health journey, my partner, and making sure I spend time with him, to making sure that my passions outside of work are exist. I'm a heavy believer that every entrepreneur should be in therapy. I'm actually a heavy believer that everyone should be, but we'll start with entrepreneur to make it better. I think my therapist asked me this question about 4 or 5 years ago. If you took away work, what does Kristin do? Who is she?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, well, like I like to cook and entertain for people. He's like, not the right answer. And it became a journey to figure out those answers and to become something more than just the CEO. Um, so that's a life lesson I've learned, but have been learning about how to grow and how to develop in. Um, I think it's really important that we spend time with the people who we want to spend time with and people we care about, because growing in this career is amazing. Don't get me wrong. But I do have now the perspective of sitting down at 55 and realize I had no one to celebrate any of the wins with. So what really was the point of the big success?
Mhm.
So that's been a big thing. Um, the second caveat to that, the second piece of that is health is the base of everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes we choose as entrepreneurs to keep working versus eating that lunch, that healthy lunch, or keep working versus working out, or keep working. Oh, and we have to work. And eventually, at some point, your body starts telling you what's going on.
Yeah.
And I've seen the entrepreneur have to go to the hospital. Like I've picked my friends up from the hospital because they burnt themselves out. They didn't take care of their body and didn't listen to warning signs, didn't go to the doctors like they should have. So it's now become one of those non-negotiables for me, health and relearning health. And this day and age with food being how it is in the US and understanding how to eat for myself and how to make things work. So, yeah, I think prioritization of health has been huge. Um, yeah, and the final life lesson for me is truly everything mental. You know, we have these personal trainers who can help train your body, but we have to also train our mind. And I'm not trying to pass on any generational trauma. I'm not trying to be unaware of where I can be better and be a better partner, be a better friend, be a better daughter. So yeah, I'm very much in my prioritization of me stage, even though I'm building this big business, because I do think it makes me better at my job
Yeah.
because I'm stable and happy. And
Mhm.
when things get really hard, it's not all I have anymore. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, yeah, those are great pillars. And also too that yeah, health just being the base because if you're not well, then if you burn out, then you can't do what you want to do. So resting and taking care of yourself is your ability to recharge and to keep going. Everything needs to rest. Everything in life has a resting period. So that's definitely needed. Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for yeah, I really appreciate your responses so far. So I want to open it up to the group and to see if you have any questions for Kristin, questions or comments.
Hello. I have a question, and I kind of did a little background search,
Love
for
it.
the meeting. But I wanted to know when you were starting your company, did you get outside investors?
We did. When we first started, though, actually, it was mostly myself and my co-founder. I cleared out my 401k and kind of paid for all the research pieces. And then Macy had just sold her startup in the tech space. So she came in as her first bigger investor. But yeah, over the course of the last 4 years, we've raised about 1.1 million, and are currently raising another 3.5.
Okay, so like a seed round, I mean, is that kind of like
Yeah. So right now, this would be a seed round. Before would be a pre-seed.
okay,
Hmm.
that's really exciting. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm just happy to be here today. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, talk about a labor of, I wouldn't say of love. I think raising outside investment is one of the worst things to do as a founder, emotionally, but it is one of those things that it has been a blessing. We wouldn't have been able to do without the outside capital. Definitely not.
Yeah. And I would think about with something you're selling like retail, just the amount that you have for just the products alone, and then you think about the wine itself and then the wine distribution, that does take a lot of capital. So Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the licensing is insane.
Oh,
I would say, we spent $90,000 on licensing alone
wow.
between law firms, every different state you have to register in for wine.
Mhm.
So, you
Right,
can,
the different states, yeah, and their laws
yeah,
and policies, yeah.
back to the ownership piece, right? And where that cost prohibitiveness is. It was a blessing to be able to do that. Most companies cannot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big chunk of it for sure. And then of course getting the actual product out into market and then realizing you have to actually sell it. Oof. Oh
All the
boy.
different steps, right? Oh my,
Yeah.
okay. Any more questions for Kristin?
Maybe not. That's okay.
Okay. So I did want to give you some time to really talk about your wine and talk about, so I was talking about your leadership journey, your personal journey, but also want to give this time for you to say a bit about KT Winery. And you have two brands out or two lines out right now, which I think is Mom Juice and KT Signature, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah. So if you just let us know a bit more about your wine and I guess as you were saying, as you pitch it to other folks and how you've gotten all these investors, what is it about KT Winery and your wine that really stands out?
Yeah, you know, I don't want to mislead anyone. I accidentally made this wine this way. We just, back to the good old boys club, sometimes not knowing things will actually be in your favor. I didn't know that in the US we put all this stuff in wine to make it taste a certain way or, kind of to copy paste. So I
Yeah.
missed, no one told me.
Mhm.
So my winemaker and I, when I said what should be in, when we talked about what should be in the wine, I was like, well, grapes and yeast, a little sugar to make sure it's balanced. And I don't know what else needs to be in there. Whereas some wineries have wines that have like 40 ingredients in it. Ours have less than nine always. So all of our wines are low sugar, gluten-free, vegetarian, and like I said, made with less than nine ingredients. One of the big keys to our wine and why people keep coming back to it is because sugar is what causes headaches. Sugar is also what causes your skin to break out, causes a lot of those factors that we think of when it comes to alcohol, similar to how additive-free tequila has really become a thing. The idea is how can you keep it as clean as possible? Now, being low sugar, we don't have a lot of sweet wines on our roster, so that is important to note. But all of our wines are going to be kind of in the dry side, very enjoyable, very easy drinking. I call them Tuesday wines. Um, one of this is the bottle I had next to my desk from another meeting, but this is our red blend. So we have a Sauvignon Blanc, a Rosé, a California Cabernet Sauvignon, and a red blend. We are very selective about the growers we use. We do a lot of different chemical testing to make sure there's nothing in there that we didn't know about. Down to the point of we've thrown out 14,000 gallons of wine before because we would have had to add some chemical stabilizers in there, and that's just not what I promise to people. The other big unique factor is we have our ingredients right on the back of the label. We're one of 14 wineries that do that in the US. So, we used to be one of four. So we started doing that about 2.5 years ago. And I wanted people to understand why our wine was. I wanted people to start asking that question of, wait, why does no one else have their ingredients on the back of their label? What's going on? What do they have to hide? Um, Obviously for us, it's great marketing, because people get to see and they have an interesting story to tell. But I'm really passionate that what we put in our bodies, we should know what's in there. And it shouldn't be that complicated. And it shouldn't contain a bunch of chemicals we've never heard of before. So anyway, I think that's been the big passion. We are, of course, in retail as well. So we're in about 500 stores right now. As of next week, we'll be in about 650 stores, including pretty much everywhere, Target, Safeway, Total Wine, hopefully some other really cool ones soon. I don't know if Food City's out in Fredericksburg yet, but that's coming.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we actually launch in Virginia like next month. which I'm really excited about. So we'll be in all the stores all over Fredericksburg, all over everywhere. So my mom's really excited because that means I get to visit more. So
That is excellent because that was my next question because I was looking at your site and I was like, I don't know if they do sell or distribute to Virginia yet, but you will very soon.
yes, so Virginia, we launched in Texas. Oh, actually, I think this may be the first time I'm saying this, so it's okay. But yeah, we launch in Texas, Illinois, and Florida as well next week, and then Virginia next month.
Excellent.
Yeah, and then we're in Colorado, North Carolina, and Tennessee already. So
Okay. Thank you for that. I mean, and that's huge, Kristen. I was like, wow. I mean, the scale of that and to be able to um have that scale of a winery and wine business is amazing. And also for your age, for and like I said, there's not many women or people of color who are doing what you're doing in the wine industry. So I just want to emphasize that amazing. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Not that, hopefully just remember you being a student and the where you're at now. Yeah, this is really significant. So thank you. And thank you for opening doors. I think you and Macy and just KT Winery existing is going to open doors for so many people. And for people to say, oh, look at the people who are now doing this in the wine industry, in this business, and this is how they did it. And I think to also lean into who you are, that really creates your success as well. That, like you said, that we didn't stray away from, I am who I am, right? And what informs what I'm doing, even down to I want my wine to not have a lot of additives in it. Um,
thank you. I really, really appreciate that. It's definitely been a journey, but one I wouldn't trade for the world. So, um, but yeah, this is site. The store up locator will be updated soon. So I know someone said they're from Houston. Girl, I need you to show up for me in Houston, okay?
I definitely will.
Thank
Do you
you.
know which are you going to be in specs
Soon,
soon? Okay, because
soon.
that's the big Texas-based one. Um,
Yeah, so we'll be in Target and Total Wine. Y'all, I did this in October. I did not know, just so everyone knows. I did not know. Okay. Just want to put that in the books. Granted, they are still a huge retailer. It's funny. Sorry, this is slightly a tangent, but my co-founder and I were looking at the list. It was like, there's not many places up here marked safe that sell wine. Banana Republic isn't going to start selling wine soon. Someone else has got to get their stuff together. But no, so we're in Target, Total Wine, HEB soon. So that's a huge Texas one, of course.
oh, that yeah, that's
Yeah.
really big. Oh, so
Yeah, so we'll
exciting.
be all over, and soon for Food Line in Virginia. So we'll be all over the place. Yeah, but we're diversifying. I don't want y'all to think we're not. We make sure everyone can get their wine however they want to shop is my goal.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And that's great. That distribution, that level of distribution that is significant. So thank you so much. And I think that's pretty much it. Is there anything that you want to share about some things you're doing at KT Winery or how the folks here can learn more or support, spread the word to their friends as well?
Absolutely. Of course, buying the wine is awesome. There are, I would say, like two major things. I am really passionate about supporting people's and. So if you're a mom and, or as I like to call myself, you're a rich auntie and, you're a, career woman and I'm really passionate about that. And so is I think all the women on my team. We decided to have this event. It's called She's Got the Juice. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina on May 2nd and 3rd. I called all of the women who I call for advice all the time, and asked them if they would come on stage and talk. And they all said yes, which is crazy. So Morgan DeBon from Blavity Afrotech, she's coming to speak and do a Q&A and do a meet and greets. And she's fabulous in person, just like you would expect. Good Moms, Bad Choices, the number one parenting podcast in the world for multiple years, are hilarious. So lots of laughs. Also have built a beautiful business. I believe Erica's mom is the founder of the Beauty Blender. If you guys put on makeup ever, it's the little sponge thing. So fascinating story there. Felicia Hatcher, she's the CEO of Pharrell Williams Fund, Black Ambition, who's one of our investors. She'll be there. Going to be an amazing room. We expect about 200 to 250 women and allies. We're not saying no to men as well. They can come hang out. But really the goal is to cultivate oh, yes, Alexa, you are fast, girl. Is to cultivate community learning. And then day two, we'll do kind of a wellness day to kind of ground all the things we just learned about each other, and do a little more networking from night one, where we had all these amazing conversations. We also have a surprise guest for day two, which is I won't say who it is, but she is a Black entrepreneur mogul. Like, hands down, you've all heard of her, I promise, coming. So I won't say that one yet. I have to keep that gag order in. But so good. So that is happening. Tickets are the least expensive they're going to be, just FYI. I wanted to make it accessible, so that's why it's at the price point, because we're going to feed you and give you wine. Um, Part two, if you're interested, if you guys invest, I'm not going to talk about this too long because I don't want it to feel like a sales pitch, but I personally invest in startups because I understand them, and the S&P 500 gives me anxiety sometimes. So startups are the riskiest investment, don't get me wrong, but usually the highest return. We just opened up our WeFunder round, which is kind of basically giving the same terms we gave to Black Ambition, for you guys to invest on them too, as little as $100 if you want to. Um, it's really cool because you get to get ownership in a company, in a startup that we usually wouldn't offer this to, but it was something that was so highly requested. So we decided to open it up, and it's only open for a month and a half. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm happy to drop that link, chat about more offline. I don't want to, like I said, make it salesy. But it's really cool. It's also just a really cool platform to see other uh, Black owned and women owned and smaller companies that are becoming bigger companies. It's super cool. Kin Apparel raised up there recently. It is so wonderful. And in general, I just recommend that as a great resource. So yeah, I would say those are the few things.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting it in the chat. So wefunder.com. And then everybody who attended today, I always send a follow-up email. I have all these links to KT Winery, to She's Got the Juice, and the WeFunder. And I see there's one hand up, Pastor Joy.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me
Yes.
now? Yeah, sorry, I'm on that mobile thing, but I wanted to say congratulations. It was really good being able to hear your story. I did kind of look things over, and I spy non-alcoholic.
Coming soon. Yes.
Okay, I'll continue to hang out. I was wondering who was going to get the vision
Yeah. You
because we
know,
could certainly use it.
I'm a big, and back to the health thing, right? I think people should be able to drink what they want to drink. Moderation is important, of course. But I'm a switch hitter, so I go back and forth between non-alcoholic and our traditional wine. And I think optionality is really important. And I want everyone to sit at the table regardless of what's in your glass. So as long as I make it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what's important. I congratulate you. It's always been an area that intrigued me, in terms of being able to come up with the concepts and listening to the process that you were learning. What ingredients, how is this going to, be what products you'd like to pursue. All of those are there's like learning curves, and so I commend you for your progress, and I know that you'll be successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I promise not to spam you, but if you do click on the website and click the non-alc, there's a little form where you can put your name and email and you'll get the email when it comes out. So
Cool. I know
keep
there's
getting
plenty.
together.
There's plenty of people that I know that,
Yes.
they will partake, and sometimes it just makes things easier,
Yeah.
for those that don't partake, but they can't, if you will, under when alcoholic beverages are being served,
Mhm.
it's kind of tough when everybody got wine and you got orange juice, so
It is. Like, who has time for that? I
yeah,
would say that's one of the reasons we made it actually for us, the catalyst was my co-founder being pregnant. And I would, before we told everyone, we would give her non-alcoholic wine that was on the market and we would have it. It's like, oh, that tastes like formaldehyde.
yeah, pretty
Okay.
much.
So it's like, we
Mm,
got to make this better without so much sugar, but still yummy and fun and something you want to have more than one glass of. So that was
okay,
exactly the catalyst. So I
all right.
appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll be prayerful for your progress. Thank you
Thank
so much for taking my comments.
you. Of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy. Anybody else have a comment or question for Kristin before we wrap up? We're actually ahead of time.
Okay, so this is out of curiosity.
Sure.
Was there ever a point where you just like threw your hands up and you're like, I'm done with this? And like what pushed you over that? Like what, kind of got you through that feeling or over the hump?
Yeah. It is. Sometimes I think, but I feel like I'm back there. Um, there was a time where, we were paying people, the brand was growing, but we weren't really making money. Like I could see it coming, right? Like net 30, net 60 invoices, but I needed money right then to make payroll, not just for everyone, but for myself. I had just had surgery for my endometriosis. I had just gotten laid off because my boss wanted me to quit doing KT Winery and work for them. And I said no. And I was staring at an eviction notice at the same time.
Oh,
I
wow.
do this 2023. And everyone and their mother was calling me for money. Everyone from just, Chase Bank for my personal credit card because my balance was so high because I couldn't pay myself to, people for the wine side. And there's just no end in sight. Like I did not know how I was going to get money in the next 100, like next 30 days to clear this, to not get evicted. Liquidating your stocks and bonds takes a hot minute. So it's like, I don't have that. Put all my savings into this company. What do I do? Um, and I remember going into my closet and just breaking down. And I felt it. I was like, this is the moment. This is when people give up. I can feel it. And it's like, I don't want to, but boy, I'm tired of everything being so hard. And it was just like there was in a direction, my boyfriend was like, you never spend time with me. Like, what are we doing this for? My mother was like, you never call me. What are we like, what's up? Nothing was easy. It was just like everyone wanted something from me and I didn't have anything to give. And yeah, I called my mom and I started with, hey, this is not the time to criticize me. I need you to be my person right now. And I need you to talk me into what I'm building. And I need you to tell me it's going to be okay. And I need you to believe it as you tell me because I'm not believing it right now. And my mom was like, I don't know. I feel like she just took a deep breath and just like got to me. Like she just knew how to bring me back from that brink. And then slowly but surely, I sent everyone the same message. Hey, I appreciate that you're looking for a response. I need a couple of days to process, and I will happily reach back out to you. And I didn't care what they said after that. I turned all the email off. I took a long walk around the park, did a lot of deep breathing. I literally took a day off, even though it was probably the worst time in my mind at the moment to do that. And I washed my hair and I read a book and I realized that the world would go on even if I fail at this. But then I somehow throughout that day, I think I found the passion to not fail at it and to just keep going. But it did take the tribe of people to for me to also let them know. I also let my boyfriend know, like, hey, I'm on the edge. I am at my limit, and I get that you need this. And I told my best friend, I'm at my limit. I need support right now. I know you're mad at me, but you have to give me this support, or I have to cut you out at this moment. And everyone said, oh, heard. Thank you for telling us. And I think my biggest lesson I learned from that is you have to tell people what's going on, because I wouldn't have gotten to that point if I had told someone.
Right.
I was
Well,
actually,
that's great, yeah, that you had such
yeah.
a strong support system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And it is wonderful. I recognize everyone doesn't have that. So I will say I think I'm 10 people's emergency contacts in the entrepreneur world when things aren't going well, because you have to create your own tribe sometimes too. So yeah, no, I've been there, girl. Been there. And now we're paying $20,000 in payroll every month. So I'm like, okay, great. Here we go. Every Friday, money is in that account to hit payroll. So I think the tenacity is shown into blessings for sure. So
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for highlighting one key aspect is your support network.
mhm.
And so I think the follow-up question for you is as you said, how do you find your tribe, especially if it especially being if you're a business owner or you're starting something new or you're pivoting, how do you find that support network for you, given what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, it's really important to find people who get the vision and won't belittle your vision. Um, and it is fair to say there are people I just don't call anymore. And I didn't cut them out or anything like that. I'm just not calling them because I know that they're gonna say, oh, well, I mean, girl, you could always just go back to this, or girl, do that, or it's fine, you gave it a chance. I don't want to hear any of that. No, that's not what we're doing here. I need problem solvers. It has been other entrepreneurs, and I found them in a variety of ways. I haven't found a single city yet that doesn't have these things, so that's why I'm using them as resources. Co-working spaces at those events, I've met some of my best friends. I have met my people at different events. And when I say events, I mean ones that are really intentional, though, not the like, oh, it's a random business networking. It's like, no, it's something really actionable, like, oh, come see the JP Morgan and Chase because they do events for free in every city. Go to JP Morgan and Chase and hear about how a loan can maximize your business or whatever, right? Because you're having money problems, so are all the people sitting at that one, and you can have someone to talk to. Or you talk to people who don't have money problems and they have their $1 million line of credit. Second thing is some of the ways I found people who are like way, bigger than me, like the McBride sisters and Fawn Weaver. I email them and they respond. And that's how we started our relationship, right? And when we got the American Airlines deal and I didn't know what to do, I emailed Fawn. And no, we don't talk every day, but boy, oh boy, did she help me get through that. I think it's really important when we email, though, this is just my one caveat, instead of saying, like, can you tell me how you got started? I come to people with very specific questions. And I literally start with, hi, we actually haven't had the chance to meet, but I really admire your business. I have two really specific questions. I'm going to be a little quick because I know you don't have a lot of time. And boom, boom, I usually get the answer. And then that's how you really start building that relationship. So for me, that's how I built my network from advisors. Uh, you know, Monique Rodriguez just became one of our board members from Miel Organics. And that was because I had the audacity to ask, right? So you got to put yourself out there a little bit. But yeah, it's asking the question, it's going to the thing and being the weird. I'm very awkward. I know it doesn't seem like it right now, but I'm a huge introvert. So boy, oh boy, am I the one sitting by the food table like, is she nice? I don't know. But definitely you got to put yourself out there a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. And also too, congratulations for being sold in American Airlines.
Oh, thank you.
So if you go to any American Airlines flight in the US, they'll have Mom Juice or KT Winery wine.
So they'll have KT Signature, which is kind of like a little elevated brand. It's actually, so it's international flights. So all international flights in the first class cabin.
Okay.
So Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're gonna go be bougie in Barbados, you know?
Right. Okay. KT signature. Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. That's amazing. That's excellent. Thank you so much. So, given that, I think if there's not any more questions, we can wrap up. I do want to thank Kristin so much. Thank you, Kristin, so much for your time. And I know you are very busy. And like I said, your LinkedIn profile just inspired me. I saw your journey on LinkedIn and I feel blessed that I know you. I was like, I know Kristin. I know Kristin from Mary Washington. And I just felt so blessed that I know you, that I was able to see your growth and that we can give you a bit of a platform to just highlight you and showcase the amazing work you and your team is doing. And you're absolutely inspiring a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And my last thing, I'm sure you don't remember this because you've touched so many lives throughout your career. But I will never forget I was in your office talking to you and you looked at me, you said, "Stop chasing after that boy. You go be great on your own." And it has always stuck with me. And here I am. So I appreciate it. It's something I remember greatly.
Thank you. It's so funny because, people will do that. They'll come back to me years later and they're like, so I know, what you said to me that time. And I'm like, no. And sometimes like, no, oh my goodness, what did I say?
No,
But no,
nothing.
they're always like, it says something that was inspirational. So thank you so much. I so appreciate that. That warms my heart. Thank you so much. And
No.
so what I do want to let everyone know about, let me see if I can show this, about our next leadership discussion that we'll be having. Actually, I'll have a webinar on April 2nd. And so, Kristin, some of the things that you were talking about, I'm going to highlight in this webinar. It's called Don't Lose Your Muchness, Embracing Authenticity to Thrive. And that comes from Alice in Wonderland, where the Mad Hatter told Alice that she had lost her muchness. So I'm really going to lean into about, being centered in your authenticity and then also your core values and the strengths that come from that. But also to talk a little bit about like self-care and how do you leverage all those things? Because I am going to speak to it being sometimes a double-edged sword of how much authenticity should you present in environments. And the next leadership discussion will be Galia Sims, who's the curator of African American history and VP of programs and interpretations at the local Fredericksburg area museum, or the Fredericksburg area museum, because not everybody is here in Fredericksburg. So that's what we have upcoming for collaborative change consulting. So if you want to continue to see amazing discussions like I just had today with Kristin, follow me on my social media platforms. Also, too, I'll post this video to my YouTube channel. It's Collaborative Change Greta Como. And also, too, you can go to my website to sign up for my email, and you'll get emails about these great events and some things that I'm doing in the future. But letting you know that this video with Kristin will be posted on YouTube. I would say, because I'm doing it, it'll be by next week. Hopefully it'll be sooner than that. And then also too, we'll work on getting specific clips from this video as well. So again, let's give virtual or a round of applause for Kristin. Thank you so much for your time and for you sharing your journey and insights about being a business owner. All right. Thank you so much. I see people clapping. All right. Well, have a good evening. And thank you so much. I'll be in touch. Thank you so much, Christian. I so appreciate this. Okay.
Of course.
Have a good
Thanks
night.
all. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.